All right, let's get right into it. For decades, mental health care has been kind of stuck, really searching for the next big breakthrough. Today, we're going to talk about a substance that's completely forcing us to rethink how we treat our toughest mental health challenges. And that substance is ketamine.
So, I want you to imagine a kind of depression so deep that nothing seems to touch it. Not multiple medications, not years of therapy. They call it treatment resistant depression. Now, what if I told you there's a therapy for it that has up to a 70% response rate? I mean, that number is almost unheard of.
And here's the part that is just mind blowing: the speed. We're not talking about the usual 4 to 6 weeks it takes for traditional antidepressants to maybe kick in. We're talking about profound, sometimes life saving relief in as little as 24 hours. For someone in a crisis, that is everything.
Now, you hear numbers like that, and it's easy to jump to the conclusion that this is some kind of miracle drug. But it's not that simple. And this raises a huge question that's really splitting the world of psychiatry. Is ketamine just a fast-acting pill? Or is its real power unlocked through a much deeper, more complex process?
And that question leads us straight to the heart of the matter. You see, for all of its incredible power, the amazing effects of a ketamine treatment can be, well, frustratingly short-lived. This is what we call the ketamine paradox.
And this chart really tells the whole story. Look at this. When ketamine is just given as an infusion by itself, the benefits often just disappear within a week. But, and this is a huge but, when you combine that same infusion with psychotherapy, those benefits can last for 17 weeks or even longer. We're talking about the difference between a temporary fix and a real chance at long-term healing.
So, why the huge difference? Well, it all comes down to two totally different philosophies about what ketamine actually is and how we should be using it. Let's break down these two competing paths to healing.
Okay, so on one side, you've got the medical model. It basically sees ketamine as a pill, a biological tool. The goal is to suppress symptoms, and those weird psychoactive effects, they're just an unfortunate side effect you have to manage. But on the other side, the consciousness-centered model says, no, 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 you're missing the point. It sees ketamine as a catalyst for a process where those very same psychoactive effects are the key to unlocking real, deep psychological change.
And this table really lays it all out. These two philosophies lead to completely different approaches. Just look at that experience row. One model is actively trying to get rid of the psychoactive part of the experience. The other embraces it, believing it's the whole point. And this isn't just some small detail. It changes everything about the treatment. And as you can see right there at the bottom, it has a massive, massive impact on how well it actually works in the real world. The protocol really is everything. So how does one drug produce such wildly different results? Well, the answer is that it's working on two levels at once. You've got the physical brain, the hardware, and you have the subjective mind, the software. And the magic happens because the two are so deeply connected. Let's start with the hardware, the brain. What ketamine does is trigger this flood of a chemical called glutamate, which in turn releases something called BDNF. You can think of BDNF as being like Miracle-Gro for your brain cells. It kicks off this incredible process where your brain literally starts growing new connections. And as you can see here, this creates a special time-sensitive neural plasticity window, a few days where the brain is super flexible and ready to learn new ways of thinking.
Okay, so that's the brain. Now let's talk about the mind. The software. This isn't just a bunch of chemicals firing. It's a profound psychological event. Just look at this quote from a major Johns Hopkins study. For 2/3 of people, the experience was ranked among the top 5 most meaningful of their entire lives. Think about that. And what's really crucial here is that the more meaningful and mystical the experience is, the better the long-term therapeutic results.
So, how does it do that? Well, one of the key things happening is that it disrupts what's called the default mode network. You can think of this network as the part of your brain that's responsible for that nagging inner critic, that endless loop of negative self-talk. Ketamine temporarily turns down the volume on that network, which creates this incredible mental space, this freedom, where new ideas and perspectives can finally get a word in.
So, if the experience itself is the key, how do you make sure that experience is a healing one? Well, it's not random. It's not a roll of the dice. The consciousness-centered model follows a very specific blueprint for change. And the absolute foundation of that blueprint is something called set and setting. Set is your mindset.
what you bring into the experience, your intentions, your hopes. And setting is the environment around you, the physical room, the people you're with. It might sound simple, but research shows these two things are maybe the most important factors in determining whether the experience is healing or just plain scary. Context is everything.
This idea of set and setting is then built into a very structured 3-part protocol. First, there's preparation. This is where you work with a therapist to build trust and set clear intentions. Then there's the medicine session itself, where you're supported the entire time. And finally, and this part is absolutely critical, there's integration. This is where you take all the insights from that experience and, with your therapist, figure out how to weave them into your actual life. And you do it right away to take full advantage of that neuroplasticity window we just talked about.
Look, the fact that these two models exist isn't just some academic curiosity. The path we choose to go down here has massive, high-stakes implications for the entire future of mental health care.
And this chart just puts it all in stark relief. In the real world, your average medical infusion clinic, with no therapy, sees about a 20% response rate. But when you use a full protocol, the preparation, the supported session, the integration, that number jumps to 65%. The data is it's staring us right in the face. The process is the medicine.
And this brings up some huge, thorny questions for the system as a whole. Right now, there's this weird situation where insurance will often pay for the less effective infusion, but not for the therapy that actually makes it work long-term. It forces us to ask, what do we actually want from our mental health care? Do we just want to manage symptoms, or do we want to help people achieve real, lasting transformation?
So ultimately, ketamine has cracked open a door, and it's forcing us to look through it and confront a really fundamental question about what healing even is. Is the future of psychiatry about finding cleverer ways to suppress symptoms, or is it about finding safe, supported, and effective ways to help people transform their own consciousness? The answer to that question is going to define mental health care for generations to come.